Welcome to the presentation of the paper Restraints as a Mechanic for Bodily Play by Louise Petersen Matjeka, Hobye and Henrik Svarrer Larsen. This paper introduces how the notion of restraints works as a mechanic in movement-based games and how bodily play experiences emerge when interacting through restraints. Restraints are physical restrictions of the player's bodily capabilities that work to limit the player's freedom of bodily movement in specific ways. We know these restrictions from as we see the boy jumping on one leg, or, for example, football, where the players are restricted from using their hands to touch the ball and have to use their feet instead. The term restraint is borrowed from the dictionary definition of restraints as the action of keeping someone or something under control, deprivation or restriction of personal liberty or freedom of movement, a device which limits or prevents freedom of movement. As such, restraints redefine the player's bodily preconditions for actions and interactions through rules, actions, or devices that affect their freedom of bodily movement and thereby alter their bodily movement possibilities in the game. The notion of restraints as a mechanic for bodily play is then developed by using this definition to analyze bodily play mechanics in traditional movement-based games. The observed mechanics were found as three different types of restraints: fixation of body parts, exclusion of body parts, deprivation or manipulation of bodily senses. Restraints as fixation of body parts is where one or more body parts are fixated onto something or someone, like we see here in balloon dancing, where the players have to keep the balloon between their heads for as long as possible. Restraints were also found as exclusion of body parts, where one or more body parts are excluded from the game, like in football as we see here, where the player's hands are excluded from use and they can only use their feet to kick the ball. The third way to create a restraint is as a deprivation or manipulation of bodily senses. Deprivation or manipulation of bodily senses is when one or more of the player's bodily senses are deprived, as we know in Blind Man's Buff, where the catcher is blindfolded and dizzy from being turned around. Restraints can either be rule-based, as we know from the football example where the player's hands are excluded from the game by rules. Restraints can also be instated by actions, as in this example, the woman's knee is glued to the other player's leg. The woman's action fixates the other player's leg to her knee. Also, devices can instate restraints. This was the case with the blindfold in Blind Man's Buff, or in this odd version of football where the player's eyesight is deprived by a funnel. Because games are subjective experiences, the theoretical conception of restraints is rooted in different phenomenological concepts of bodily movement and play. As such, the idea of restraints is built on Merleau-Ponty's theory that bodily action reshuffles the elements of our equilibrium and how bodily experience is rooted in this reshuffling of the elements. Sheets Johnstone tells us how synergies of playful movements result in kinetic joyrides. Clois and Suits give us an understanding of games as unnecessary and arbitrarily chosen obstacles to overcome, and Salin and Zimmerman explain games as spaces of possible actions. The technological coupling of restraints and digital movement-based games is explained by referring to Don Idey's and Rosenberg and Verbeek's theories of the reduction-magnification structure in digitally mediated experiences, that because the space for full-body actions and thus perception is reduced, the bodily perception and actions in the game can thus be experienced as magnified. These theoretical conceptions has led to the following definition of restraints. Restraints as mechanics for bodily play are direct fixations or exclusions of body parts, or deprivation or manipulation of bodily senses, instated either by rules, actions, or the use of devices. When the players move, the restraints take form as unnecessary and arbitrarily chosen obstacles, causing a change in the player's bodily preconditions for actions and interactions, which leads to a difference in their bodily movement possibilities. For bodily play experiences, the change in the player's preconditions for actions and interactions starts the process of reshuffling the equilibrium, leading to kinetic joyrides. Restraints is developed as a generative resource for designers and researchers working with bodily play experiences and movement-based game design. Restraints can be identified as fixations or exclusions of body parts, or deprivation or manipulation of bodily senses, instated either by rules, actions, or devices. Thank you for watching.